Clement blames Principal Thobakgale for his unplanned coming out. Skeem Saam is a South African television series which normally focuses its main attention on three teenage boys who face adult problems far too large for their young shoulders to carry. In its core, Skeem Saam addresses the typical social issues that occur in South African communities. These range from calling out boys on catcalling to living with HIV to the LGBTQIAPK issues. Hi, it's Jonathan here and welcome to episode Mzansi. Sexuality is easily one of the most misunderstood concepts in our society. So we have decided to pay some respect to Skeem Saam's excellent address of Clement's coming out and how he, his family and the whole community of Turfloop react to the bomb he drops on them. Clement is Dennis and Strogo's only son. Because of their toxic marriage, he is forced to move in with his grandmother Mantulinde Siakamela home. Living there are his aunt Pretty and uncle Kwaito, played by Clement Mausa, not to be confused with this Clement. He is currently a grade 12 learner at Turf High, where he holds one of two class representative positions. He enjoys playing soccer and hanging out with his mischievous friends Koloi and Noah, even though they keep dragging him into unnecessary trouble. He accidentally announces his sexuality at their joint disciplinary hearing, and as previously mentioned, he blames his school principal for it. Mapasega, is that you? Okay, here's the backstory. Turf High organizes a 3-day educational trip to Gauteng province from the 4th to the 6th of May for their 2020 matriculants, where they go to places like Saibono, the Apartheid Museum, and Gold Reef City to name a few. Noah convinces his classmates to throw a party while at the trip. It's the morning of the 4th and the sun is out. There's excitement everywhere and all the pupils are waiting in eager anticipation for a great trip ahead. Shadi, being the other class rep, is entrusted with searching her classmates' luggage, so she smuggles in the alcohol she finds in their bags. As the bus is leaving, Jonas and his mother are found chasing after it. Run, Jonas, run! Fortunately, they catch up to it. Jonas hops on and they go their merry way. It's all the wheels on the bus go round and round, round and... Well, you get it. All is well. The program is in order and the kids seem to be on their best behavior. As usual, kids being kids, they get up to their mischievous deeds. After a long day of visiting the SABC studios in Johannesburg Zoo, the teachers Alfred and Strogo are relaxing by the pool. Unbeknownst to them, throats are open as Shadi throws the whole grade a party in the room she shares with her friend Ruth. This is while Ruth and Koloi are doing the hanky-panky in the room Koloi shares with Clement. As day 3 begins, the students are in hot water when they get caught. The teachers had put black tapes on their doors so that they would know who left their rooms at night. However, they failed dismally when they tried to suss out who had snuck out. When an anonymous voice asks about their pool session, they are forced to resume all activities. After visiting the cradle of humankind, Noah and his friends Koloi and Clement decide to confront their arch-nemesis Jonas about Emma's ring. See, Noah and Jonas had the hearts for the same girl, Em. So Noah is still in his feelings because she rejected his advances and dated Jonas instead. Unfortunately, Emma had lost her purity ring on the night of the party when she went stargazing with Jonas. Because of the fact that Emma's ring was found next to a condom wrap, Noah thinks Jonas could have gotten her drunk and taken advantage of her. Understandably so, with the scary and staggering statistics of gender-based crimes in South Africa. Noah, Koloi and Clement whisk Jonas to the bushes to question him, but only Noah returns from their confrontational trip. Clement, Koloi and Jonas get lost and are forced to spend the night in the wild. The rest of the students go home with the SGB chaperone Mr. Sakhwale, whilst Togo and Alfred stay behind to help search for the lost pupils. On the morning of the 7th, Togo leaves the search team and frantically runs into the bushes calling out the boys' names. She finds Koloi passed out and injured, and shortly after, she finds Clement weak, hungry and dehydrated. She picks Clement up and takes him to safety first. Then Alfred gives her grief for leaving Koloi behind, like she could carry 2 grown men all by herself. Alfred, just okay? Togo then directs them to where Koloi is and is brought to safety too. So, where is Jonas? Sadly, while the boys were lost, bees chased and led them further into the wild, where a lion also chased and separated them. Koloi and Clement found each other, and later that evening they heard growling while trying to start a fire to ward off other wild animals. As if the whole ordeal was not traumatic enough for the pair, they later find out that their friendly rival Jonas was devoured by a lion. Jonas Manamela passed away. Alfred shamelessly reminds Togo about how she left Koloi for dead, strong-arming her to call the principal to update her about the expense for an emergency ambulance to transport Koloi to Turf Hospital. Now, the principal has had no answers for the furious parents because Alfred and Stogo continue to conveniently omit the details of the saga that is their trip. Stogo's call scares her to expect the worst, and the worst is confirmed when Manaka barges into her office with a phone call from a journalist who is trying to get the scoop about the learner who was eaten by a lion, just as the parents were leaving. I mean, Manaka, your timing, bro. The parents get more enraged. Even I am shaking for the principal. The principal and the three boys' parents await their children's arrival, only to receive Stogo and the two boys. Alfred, the deputy principal no less, had chickened out of facing the principal, and he still had to answer to his wife Celia about the trending photo of him and Stogo having wine by the pool late at night. As the rumors fly about Alfred and Stogo's supposed entanglement, Clement is cyberbullied and social media names him Alfred's stepson and the son of a homewrecker. Before the boys could even deal with their trauma, the school issues out two investigations, one on who was responsible for the party and another on what led to Jonas's passing. During the investigations, Principal Thobakgale puts a target on Clement's back when she tells Noah that there's a list that portrays him to be the one responsible for the party, and Clement's name is omitted from it. Noah tells his friends and classmates that Clement betrayed them by snitching about the party. Then he convinces them to pin the bringing of the alcohol on him. This led to Clement being sidelined and called names by his so-called friends. Eventually though, he clears his name and they all make up and face their disciplinary hearing together as a united front. It's the 11th of June where Shadi, another member of the dating club, gives a sworn statement in the presence of her scary loan shark uncle Dragon, the Skakagaga version of Lakash, and this time Shadi spills all the beans. Later that afternoon, Clement, Noah and Koloi attend their joint disciplinary hearing with their representatives. Principal Thobakgale starts by reading the boys their charges, and Noah pleads guilty for the party and not guilty for wandering off. So, we are just going to pretend like we never saw you on that old man's raft, huh? Anyway, Clement pleads guilty for wandering off and not guilty for the party. Okay, so that's not you at the party then. Koloi, on the other hand, pleads guilty for all charges, proving to be the only honest one at the moment. The three boys begin tripping over the beans Shadi had spilled when Principal Thobakgale questions them about their motives to having Jonas killed. After piecing the information she got from her little birdies together, she speculates that Noah could have wanted Jonas dead because Jonas was dating the love of his life, Emma. She also suspects that Koloi could have also wanted Jonas dead because Jonas used to tease him in class. The principal goes as far as mentioning how convenient it was that Koloi was able to get away despite being injured in the leg, whereas Jonas lost his life. Mokhadi, Noah's overprotective mother, and Ramolao, Koloi's fatherly uncle, defend the boys against the principal's harsh line of questioning. To ease the pressure, a 20-minute recess is granted. Upon coming back, Noah's violent past is brought into question, but leads nowhere as the principal's speculations are met with silence and Mokhadi always has her boys back. Trouble seems to be brewing for Noah and Koloi only, and not for Clement. However, when the principal lists his possible motive, it is not what he is anticipating at all. Principal Thobakgale gives credit to her little birdies once again and reveals that Clement has been spotted hanging out with Emma after Jonas's death. She concludes that Clement could have killed Jonas just so that he can have Emma all to himself. You know, eliminate the competition. Clement is immediately backed into a corner and he's left with no choice but to defend himself. He tells the principal that he has never been interested in girls and we all think it ends there. But he accidentally blurts out that he is gay, and just like that, he comes out in front of everyone at the hearing. This bomb leaves everyone shocked, especially Mantuli, his grandmother who had just learnt about her only grandson's sexuality with the rest of the world at a school hearing. Naturally, there is disbelief written across everyone's faces. Clement's revelation has now divided the room, and because no one believes him, and because he doesn't want to be humiliated, he tries to storm out. Principal Thobakgale stops him. Then Menir Manaka, along with Mr. Khopedi, cleverly suggests that the hearing be postponed to the next day, as they now face yet another sensitive subject. However, his revelation doesn't shake the room alone. It turns the small town of Toflop upside down for Clement and the Sagamela family, as they are subjected to nasty judgments everywhere they go. In the midst of everything, Mantuli and Togo are hopeful that Clement is just pulling a stunt to get away with murder. They are still in denial and fear the abuse and gossip they all will have to endure from the community. Mantuli calls Clement's parents in an effort to get them to talk some sense into him, and when his position doesn't waver, his father goes into deep thought, and his silence angers Mantuli. Unfortunately, Clement misreads his silence and confronts Principal Thobakgale the next morning and blames her for forcing him to come out when he had not intended to. He feels like she took away his choice of when and how he wanted to come out. He consequently blames her for the series of bad events that come of him accidentally coming out, but also he announces his gay pride. Because Principal Thobakgale doesn't believe him, Clement threatens to report her to the department for being homophobic and storms out. And you will see a trend from here, my friends. Anyway, the principal conducts her own investigation, which confuses her even more because everyone denies knowing of Clement's sexuality, even Togo, who is still in denial. While Clement is being cyberbullied again, he also receives nasty comments from Mantuli. When Mapiti comes to complain about Kwaito's Casanova behavior, Mantuli sarcastically brags about her son not being gay and dates 2 girls at once, just to spite Clement. Tick-tock, tick-tock goes the clock. And later that evening, Dennis and Togo are called back to the Sagamela home. Mantuli hopes that this time around, Dennis will straighten Clement out. Excuse the pun. Much to Mantuli's dismay, Dennis finally voices out his suspicions and literally accepts him with open arms. No, seriously, he hugs him and praises him, which surely spreads some love and warmth across homes in South Africa. Mantuli and Togo are disappointed by Dennis's reaction, and Mantuli blames Clement's sexuality on his parents' abusive broken marriage. As she won't live with a gay person in her house, she suggests that Clement should live with him because he supports his journey. Dennis then declines the suggestion because he lives with his girlfriend, but little did they know that Clement was eavesdropping on them. Koloi and Noah also get their confirmation of his gay sexuality from an already annoyed Clement. He was snubbed from playing soccer by his homophobic team, and their reaction as to why he was snubbed does not help the situation either, so he walks away. Now that they know that he is gay, they don't want to be seen with him in public. They summon him via text to the Molwesi house just to ask him ignorant questions. Clement can't stand their homophobia, so he storms out. Clement gets cyberbullied. It gets even worse when he encounters Koloi and his soccer buddies who tease and make fun of a trending picture of him wearing his dance outfit when he was younger. Alpheus, an employee at Charles's tuck shop, reprimands the boys about their distasteful homophobia and also questions Koloi's friendship to Clement. Clement is the topic in most households in Turf as they are all trying to figure out if he really is gay. In the Maputla home, some are upset that he seems to have used his sexuality to get out of trouble, while others are concerned about his well-being. The Molwesis question Koloi about the validity of his claim, and as shady as usual, Uma even calls him Clementine. In both homes, they warn their children to stay away from Clement. As for Alfred, he is confused by Clement being sure of his sexuality at such an early age. However, his wife schools him about people knowing their sexuality from a very young age, and she compliments her gaydar because Clement's coming out has not come as a surprise to her. They are also a bit like King Maloro and Queen Grace, as they hope that the saga surrounding Clement's sexuality will get the principal fired. The Thobakgales are also baffled, trying to figure out if Clement really isn't lying. The principal even asks her daughter Lizzie, who is dating Kwaito, if he had not said anything to her about Clement's sexuality. In Coco Mancha's home, Pretty comes over to get away from her mother's homophobia, and Coco admits to knowing nothing about homosexuality. Katlego, her grandson and Pretty's boyfriend, drops some knowledge about how gay people have always been there, but were just hidden because being gay was seen as taboo and even a crime in some countries. Clement gets lost, or runs away. Depends on how you look at it. Anyway, Pretty, Togo and Kwaito go looking for him. Kwaito pairs with the low-key private investigator and his best friend, Tibos, but fail to get help because of the stigma that is attached to Clement. Also, Captain Malabana is reluctant to help Togo until Pretty tells him the truth of the situation. See kids, tell the truth and you shall be helped. Malabana even scolds them for letting Clement get lost, as that makes him vulnerable to the hate crimes that gay people experience. Clement's disappearance doesn't shake Mantuli until she notices the seriousness of the matter, and joins the search by looking for Clement at his friends' homes with Stogo. Dennis and Guaito search for him at Tough Hospital to no avail, and Charles flat-out refuses to let Pretty paste missing persons posters in his tuck shop. Fortunately, Leshola had given Clement refuge on Big Boy's couch. Rest in peace, Mr. Maja. When Clement wakes from a bad dream, he finds out Leshola had called his family and updated them about his whereabouts. Pretty and Guaito come for him, and they promise to support him and take him home. A couple of days later, Dennis comes to check on Clement after he missed spending Father's Day with him, but finds his son married him. Because Dennis didn't want to live with him, he was subjected to somewhat extreme levels of homophobia while living in his grandmother's house. Clement was alienated from all angles. He could not even make his grandmother a cup of tea because she says he has dirty hands. He had to withstand her homophobic slurs and his mother's denial of giving birth to a gay son. His grandmother's house has become a nightmare to live in because Stogo and Mantuli ganged up on him and blamed him for humiliating them. Clement left and went homeless over a cold winter night, not knowing where he'd sleep. He was attacked in both the streets of Turf and social media streets alike. These were followed by Clement being held prisoner by his mother and grandmother, and Moruti is called to come and purge him of his gayness. Since Dennis promised to support him, rejection from his dear dad is not what he expected. Speaking of rejection, Dennis's attempt to release his son fails when confronting the stubborn Mantuli turns into a conversation of him having to take Clement in. And even after singing his praises, he still won't save him. Just because your girlfriend is not used to the idea of having a stepson, you can do better than that, Dennis. But then again, Stogo held your son prisoner and left for Johannesburg like she always does when the going gets tough. When Moruti comes at Mantuli's request, he presents the forward thinking that religious institutions could adopt. He begins by speaking privately with Clement to ask him about his well-being, and Clement tells him about the abuse he experiences. Moruti then counsels Mantuli, and she reveals her fears of Clement getting killed because he is gay. In Moruti's second visit, we learn that Clement became aware of his feelings when he was 7 years old. When other boys wrote letters to girls, he wanted to write to a boy. As he grew up, he noticed he liked boys, but still dated a girl in an attempt to feel normal. Since Clement has had a longer time to deal with his sexuality, Moruti urges him to give his family room to also come to terms with it. In the roller coaster of the counseling sessions, Moruti gets feedback about Mantuli finally letting Clement out. Tensions rise as they argue about whose freedom matters more, and once again, Clement storms out. As the coaster ride slows, Moruti brings his final counsel for the whole situation, where we finally get to hear what really bothers Mantuli. Mantuli insinuates that she attributes loving someone to being able to correct them when they are wrong, and therefore she cannot love Clement. She feels like she lost her freedom at home and in the streets, and yes, you guessed it, she blames Clement for all the judgmental looks she's given, and the gossip. Looks like somebody doesn't like the taste of their own medicine. She believes that Clement needs prayers and a good beating to straighten him up. Mantuli Mar. She starts losing faith in Moruti because he's not all like, "Repent! Repent!" on Clement. He explains that this issue is still new in their little town, so her obligation as a Christian requires her to give Clement the love of Christ. However, Mantuli is still adamant that Clement is a boy and will always be one, and that she wants great-grandchildren. Gay people can have kids too, you know. Anyway, Mantuli gets all worked up and shows Clement the door if he won't do as she says, because what she says goes under her roof. But this time, Clement stays as Moruti assures him that she will cool off. Mantuli then gets shady and makes Clement sleep in the lounge to keep him away from Guaito, just in case his gayness is contagious. Since her Moruti plan backfired, she wakes Clement up in the wee hours of the morning and gives him gardening chores. She reckons he needs to stop doing in-house chores because they make him soft. She also can't wait for Stogo to come back and clear all of his clothes that are pink or tight-fitting, so she can get him clothes that are fit for boys. With his newly found freedom, Clement goes to Charles's tuck shop and he still gets nasty looks from the shop owner. He bumps into Kenny, who had been meaning to see him. Kenny says he was inspired by his courage because he could never do what he did. When they bump into each other again, Kenny notices that Clement lost his friends to coming out, so he comforts him by saying his friends and anybody who treats him badly are foolish. Kenny expresses his gratitude to Clement on behalf of the LGBT community in Turf, and Clement is taken aback by the news of there being other people like him in his community. Kenny responds by disclosing that he's actually bisexual, but he is not ready to come out as of yet, which of course Clement understands the importance of. They begin a new friendship, and Mantuli accuses Clement of having a blesser when she and Togo walk in on his phone call with Kenny. At this point, Mantuli reeks of pettiness. While Principal Thobakgale is still puzzled by her investigation, she gets an unexpected visit from Lieto, a Turf High alumni and lawyer who taught us that the LGBT community is protected by law in South Africa. He warns the principal of Clement's intentions to continue with the case because Clement had come to him for legal advice, seeing that she had allegedly forced him to come out in front of strangers under duress. She denies having a part in Clement's coming out and is convinced that all Clement said was totally up to him. Lieto then updates her about what Clement had to endure since he came out and then advises her to do something about it before her job is on the line, and he also asks her to create a safe space for Clement at school. The principal takes Lieto's warning to mind. She humbles herself and goes to apologize to Clement, and boy is he rude to her. Despite that, the principal promises that Turf High will always be a safe space for him. Mantuli and Pretty reprimand Clement for his rudeness, and they tell the principal that they appreciate her efforts. Clement then throws shade at Mantuli by saying at least someone cares about his well-being. Later that evening, Lizzie is curious about how her mother fared with the Siakamelas. They discuss how Clement is still angry and conclude that he won't heal as long as Mantuli continues to be homophobic towards him. The principal also voices out her concern over the tension between Clement and Mantuli, and Lizzie confirms how bad Kwaito says it is. As she's a no-nonsense principal, she hopes that Clement gets the help he needs before their hearing resumes. She believes that the law is the law and one must be punished for wrongdoing regardless of their sexuality. She strengthens her stance by saying that Clement disclosing his sexuality is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. With all the drama that surrounds Clement, he also gets some good advice. Ruth cutely runs after him for a quick pep talk. They start by talking about social media comments, but quickly dismiss them as ignorance. When she asks about his friends' readjustment, he quickly makes it known that he doesn't want female friends and Ruth does not expect him to change. Clement welcomes her understanding and wise words. Ruth then throws in a time heals all line to encourage Clement to be patient while people get over the shock and accept him. However, Clement is uneasy about the hate, so Ruth gives him a life lesson she has learned from being HIV positive, and that is to take care of himself both physically and mentally. She tells him that he doesn't need anyone's validation and rejection is a gift which filters real from fake. Sometimes it's easy to focus on the bad and totally disregard the good. Even though it's his journey to follow, Clement was never alone in his catastrophe because Kwaito and Pretty have been in his corner from day one. They were the first to understand and accept him, even though it came as a shock to them too. Kwaito even opted to sleep in the shack in their backyard when Mantuli didn't want him to share a bed with Clement. And Pretty was always available to Clement when he needed to talk. On the second last day of school holidays, Kwaito and Pretty are concerned about Clement as his hearing will resume the next day. Although he feels indifferent, he doubts that the verdict would be worse than the previous year's verdict when they got into trouble for selling space muffins. Don't do drugs, kids, or sell drug-infused goods at school. Anyway, Kwaito tells Clement to concentrate on his schoolwork from then on, and Clement discloses that reports will be issued out too. Since Togo is still forbidden from representing Clement at his hearing, she asks Mantuli to go in her stead, but Mantuli is still not warmed up to the idea of Clement being gay. Surprisingly, Togo had a conversation with Clement and Johannesburg gave her a new perspective, and now she's okay with his sexuality. They eventually conclude that Dennis will be the one who represents him. It's the 7th of July, the day before the schools open after the June holidays, and Turf High is prepared to give the boys their verdict. Principal Thobakgale begins the proceedings by reminding everyone of the boys' charges. Then Mr. Hopedi continues to tell them that the school has decided to suspend the boys for 5 days. When Mokhadi tries to get Noah a lenient punishment, she is told that her son was late to the bus and hence broke the rules as well. In those 5 days, the boys aren't allowed on school premises. They are to keep up with their schoolwork and they are not allowed to get in any more trouble for the rest of the year or else they will face expulsion. They are given their reports, and as it turns out, despite everything, Clement still performed well in his June exams. With schools reopening, some teachers still feel like they cannot teach a homosexual child. Okay, we won't beat around the bush. It's Carol. Yes, Carol. Kwaito's childhood crush. She even goes as far as calling Clement's bravery to come out a curse. But Principal Thobakgale is determined to keep her word to Clement and the Sakamelas. She reminds the teachers that Turf High has a policy that protects the students against discrimination based on their sexuality. She also tells them that all pupils must be treated equally. Back in the principal's office, Principal Thobakgale is still dissatisfied with the class reps who got away with breaking the school's code of conduct without punishment. Manaka points out her bad timing, saying they should have dealt with them at the same time as the other investigations. On the other more sly hand, Alfred sees an opportunity to sway the principal into incriminating herself out of her position, and he says that Shadi and Clement thought they were invincible, watering the seed of her dissatisfaction. Even after Managa's wise counsel, the feast buys the bait, and she orders him to announce the new class rep elections first thing in the morning when the kids return. See, because Alfred had an inkling that the re-election could stir Clement and the general public to anger, he drops the first domino by offering to send letters to the parents to update them about the decision they have made. With Principal Thobakgale running Turf High with an iron fist, Stogo is asked a rather intimidating rhetorical question when she suggests that the elections wait for the suspended boys. The news of the re-election reached Clement, and he is livid. He starts making baseless accusations about the principal, claiming she's out to get him because she is homophobic. He calls her a hypocrite and wants to do some crazy stuff like wait behind a bush and jump her. Nah, just kidding. But he does threaten to go confront her at her house, since going to school would only lead to expulsion. Luckily, Pretty convinces him to calm down and do the sensible thing and canvass for votes instead of throwing a fit. Kwaito and Mantuli just want the boy to focus on his schoolwork. That's right, kids, stay in school. Principal Thobakgale is baffled by Clement's election campaign, so she summons Togo to her office to get confirmation. As a proud mother and teacher, Togo calls Clement's campaign passionate, but the principal had other thoughts in mind, saying she'll choose the second place candidates as she believes Clement and Shadi are not decent enough to be class reps again. With her tail between her legs, Stogo delivers the news to Clement, and as you can imagine, Clement goes nuts. He now thinks that not only is the principal homophobic, but she also discriminates against people living with albinism. All thanks to Kenny, Ruth, and their friends, Clement and Shadi's individual campaigns get them re-elected, and the ball is in the principal's court. She's upset the children defied her orders and voted for them, despite her protests and disapproval. Manaka and Alfred display shoulder angel tendencies, where Manaka plays the angel and Alfred the devil. Manaka warns about it being a ploy to goad a reaction out of her, whereas Alfred tries to whisper dictatorship in the principal's ear. But fortunately, Manaka is there to see right through him. This time, she takes Manaka's counsel to let it go because all the children were naughty and guilty of something. Removing the re-elected class reps would only come across as homophobic to the public. On the morning of the 15th, Alfred's serendipity blesses him with yet another person to manipulate. It is the day the boys come back from their suspension, and Clement meets a seemingly concerned Alfred who ditches his meeting with his business partner/wife to talk to him. He lies and tells Clement that the principal would be acting on her own biases if she removed him from his position. Due to his overzealousness, he drives Clement to school to manipulate him even further. But this doesn't go unnoticed by the principal since they were both late for their meeting. Anyway, now that the boys are back, the principal encourages them to focus on their studies as exams are fast approaching. Turf High intends to keep its 100% pass rate. She dismisses them and asks Clement to call Shadi for their meeting. The principal reveals the poll results and orders Clement and Shadi to read the school's code of conduct to the learners class by class and explain to them how they have violated it. This proves once and for all that Alfred's tactics and puppet mastery had failed, as there is peace between Clement and Principal Thobakgale despite his manipulations. Alfred also gets a piece of Togo's mind when she confronts him about his lousy attempt to use Clement in his dirty schemes. Schemes? See what I did there? Because Skeem Saam? Get it? Get it? Ah, never mind. So now that Clement is reinstated as class rep, life can go back to being basic and uneventful, right? Wrong! Like we said before, Clement's friends just never stop landing the boy into unnecessary trouble. And this time, Nora stirs the troubled waters that put the three boys on the police's radar. But hey, that's a story for another day. Shout out to Skeem Saam and SABC Education for giving us this beautiful case study to learn from. Isn't it super cool that Clement came out during Pride Month?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and comment down below. Please consider subscribing to our channel and ring the bell to get notified of our future uploads.
We are Mzansi and we are out.